My name's Craig Fox. I'm the chairman of the Abalone Council in Victoria, also the chairman of the Western Abalone Divers Association. I feel very fortunate to do the job I do, along with the other guys and girls in our state. So we're out here at Port Fairy. It's the Western Zone, Victoria. Yeah, we're going to jump in here. I haven't worked this spot for about 12 months, so we're going to jump in here and have a look. So we're a unique fishery. We hand harvest, unlike a lot of other fisheries, and we see what's coming through. So we see our next 2, 3, 4, 5 generations of fish. It's something that's very unique to abalone diving. Hand harvest, so there's no bycatch at all. You know, a member of the public could swim through where we've been working and wouldn't be aware that we'd been there for the day and worked. Before we go fishing every morning or the night before, we check the eCatch app, and that'll give us an indication of what's left on a certain reef code, so we can plan where we're going to work. And it's important that we don't go over the targets that have been set at the workshop the previous season. All the quotas are worked out at an annual workshop where the data and the science is put on the table. That's looked at by a third party independently with the VFA and industry, and that's how they work through and work out what the total allowable catch will be for each region. Once that's set, it's set for the year. Currently Victoria, across the 3 zones, our black lip quota is 530 tonnes and our green lip quota is 5.3 tonnes, and that's right across the Victorian coast. So we are the biggest GVP fishery in Victoria, and that's something we're very proud of. So the shell measure is an important piece of our equipment. So in the morning, Dean will put the reef code in that we're working. It'll have the size limit on it, which is 130 for this SMU and this reef. Every abalone will go through it that we catch, and that GPS tracks where it come from, as well as the boat VMS and my depth logger. So we get every shell through it. We can compare previous years for average size of the fish off the area and how big an area we've taken it off, and then we can use that to do a biomass estimate as well. So that's a very important piece of machinery, and all our guys in this zone all operate with them. So what the guys do for sustainability and the way they fish here and right across the state is they swim, you know, they just keep moving. So they're just taking the obvious fish, they don't get into the cracks and the hard ones. Them ones will move back out onto the scars when them fish are taken. Because what happens with the big fish sit in the best spots available for food. So once they're taken, leaves a scar mark. Normally by the next day, fish have moved out from places we can't see them in and take that spot. So just because they're at the legal minimum length doesn't mean that we take them fish, obviously. And we like to leave a lot more behind than what we take. And that's the best way to look after the bottom, keeps the catch rates up, and it keeps the fishery healthy.
For whatever reason, an undersized fish makes it into the catch bag and up onto the dive boat. It's our requirement that they're kept wet and put back into the dive bag, sent back down, and the diver puts them back onto the reef with due care and attention. So we have the eCatch system where divers complete their reporting, their weighing details. That gets entered in and that gets transmitted to the VFA, and the fish receivers also enter and confirm those weights into that system. The fish have to be in a sealed bin with bin tags that are numbered and supplied by the VFA. And then the fish have to go off to a licensed fish receiver, and only the licensed fish receiver can open the bins and cut the tags once they've got authorisation from the VFA.
Through experience, I've learned what to look for. in terms of environmental changes that might be occurring. It's really important as an experienced diver that I report those observations through things like the diver observation application that industry has developed. And the objective was to capture divers' observations close to the end of their days diving, so while it was fresh in their minds, and giving divers the opportunity to report those anonymously, and for that information to be incorporated into management decision making.
So the abalone fishery is quota managed, it's highly regulated, it's a dive fishery, one of our few dive fisheries that we have in Victoria. We have one diver or one operator per licence. So when divers want to enter the fishery, they complete the application form. There's a fit and proper person form that they complete that details any history that they have, any compliance or criminal history. They then undertake an induction program with their local fisheries officers. Part of that is a sit-down chat about the rules and requirements, and they also complete an assessment just to demonstrate that they have a knowledge of the rules and regulations relating to that licence, and that's a legislative requirement. We have available a 24-hour operations duty officer that divers can call if they've got any concerns or questions about the rules or the regulations. We also encourage them to contact that number if they're going out recreationally fishing in their commercial boat. Under the fisheries regulations, commercial fishers are not able to undertake recreational fishing at the same time as they're commercially fishing. So if a diver's got quota for both green lip and black lip abalone, they can fish for both species on the same trip. They've got to report them separately and they've got to be put into separate sealed bins. In the abalone fishery, we have fine scale management. The key part of that fine scale management is ensuring that fishers only take abalone from one size zone on any one day. The VFA works closely with the abalone industry and other fishing industries to ensure sustainability of our fisheries resources. And one of the key areas that we can work together is for fishers that see something suspicious, some illegal fishing, to report it to the VFA through the 13 Fish hotline, which is 133474.
So the way we look for legal fishing, normally there'll be a large amount of empty shell on the bottom. Sometimes when they're legal fishing, they'll shuck the abalone out in the water and just discard the shell. So if we swim across and we see a large patch of shell, that's a pretty good indication that it's been illegal fishing.
Commercial operators are key partners in preventing fisheries crime. They're out on the water a lot, they're experts at abalone fishing, so they're well placed to identify illegal activity and report that to the VFA.
Here in the Western Zone, we have had the AVG events. Here in Port Fairy, we haven't seen it since 2010, but we have had reoccurrence in Portland in the recent years. Telltale signs of the AVG virus: a lot of empty shell, a lot of empty clean shell. They start to look really mushy and they won't adhere or roll themselves back over. Lots of parrotfish in an area is a bit of a giveaway, but that's the telltale signs in Portland where we've witnessed it recently. Then that boat that will be quarantined for up to a week, so all the dive gear thoroughly washed. One thing with the virus that is easily killed with soap, we make sure that the boat doesn't go back in the water until the boat is completely dried. The gear has to be perfectly washed and dried so we don't take the risk of transferring disease. It's one thing that we cannot do, and we've been able to control that really well. In the east of the state and in the central zone, urchins is a massive issue for us. They encroach on the same habitat that the abalone live on, and that's something we're taking very serious and taking big steps at the moment to bring that under control.
So Centrus stephanus, or the long-spined sea urchin, historically was more present and abundant in waters in New South Wales. And what we've seen over time with climate change and with warming waters through Victoria and Tasmania, that species start to extend its range and start to move into areas that it wasn't as historically abundant. And with that species, they actually start to change the environment. Once their numbers start to build and you get more and more, and so if there's too many, they start to overgraze the reef. We lose that habitat. And all of a sudden, without that habitat, we start to lose fish and all of the other biodiversity that we get on these reefs. Sea urchin barrens start to become really obvious. So that's where you go from a nice big healthy kelp forest, you start to actually see patches of bare rock. But the important thing is that we actually want to stop it before we get these barrens forming. So one of the keys obviously is about managing the sea urchin numbers. And if we notice that the Centris definus sea urchin is moving into areas, is increasing abundances, well then we need to reduce that number of urchins. And so obviously a key way in these areas where we have fisheries is by fishing them.
For a number of years we've been running reef restoration projects in Mallacoota through removing sea urchins to recover kelp forests. After we remove the sea urchins, and then within 18 months it goes from bare rock barren covered in urchins to this lush kelp forest overstory, and it seems to be long lasting as well. As we reduce the urchin biomass through harvesting, the kelp forest comes back, and along with that a whole range of species including abalone recover. So it's, from an environmental point of view, urchin harvesting has a very positive effect. The benefits to the abalone industry of having an expanded urchin fishery is, one, the recovery of habitat, and two, it also is going to help retain divers and crews and processing staff for the benefit of both. The abalone industry is a cornerstone of the economy of Mallacoota, particularly during the non-tourist season. It's very important. As a new diver coming into the fisheries, it's really important to understand it's what you leave behind on the reef that matters.
We all really thrive to be a sustainable fishery and have it healthy for the future for our young ones coming through.